Happy December, everyone. It's holiday season, and you know what that means. That's right, we got some ice Pokemon to talk about, even though the type's not the greatest. And this time, the patrons have graciously picked, Leavanny? What? Okay, whatever. Next up, we have Leavanny, the nurturing Pokemon. Those who played Black and White will remember it as Gym Leader Berg's signature Pokemon, joining forces with him to create the highest form of artistry, or whatever it was he rambled about. Today, we'll be examining the critical reception of Leavanny's art on the competitive scene. So, how good was Leavanny actually? And in this video, we'll be going over these competitive formats. Sadly for Leavanny, its stats and move pool are not nearly what they'd have to be to make up for its ludicrously weakness-laden typing that leaves it vulnerable to just about everything in OU. It's destroyed by Stealth Rock, U-Turn, Fire moves, Ice moves, it doesn't have the bulk to effectively make use of its water resistance, and it doesn't resist much else of note, while not being offensively threatening whatsoever between its below-average speed, lack of coverage, and unimpressive attack stat, meaning it was hardly going to keep up against the Steels, Dragons, and faster offensive threats of OU. This applied to UU as well, and then applied to RU after that. And Leavanny eventually found itself in the lowest tier, NU. And even there, it wasn't too good, and didn't see much high-level usage at all, because its weaknesses were just so crippling. In theory, its stabs were nice for slicing through common defensive Pokemon that were often paired together, such as Alomomola, Tangela, Musharna, and Golurk, while offsetting Life Orb recoil with Synthesis, and keeping it and its teammates free of status with Heal Bell. These were nice attributes, but it struggled to be consistent against the metagame because it was so unable to safely switch into many Pokemon, and its power left something to be desired. Its lack of coverage also left it irremediably walled by Charizard and Haunter, the former even with Stealth Rock up. These were dangerous offensive threats one didn't want switching in for free, especially not against a Pokemon that was supposed to be offensive. Generally, Leavanny was outclassed by Leafeon, which was stronger, faster, bulkier, and didn't have a crippling Stealth Rock weakness. It just didn't have the tools to be successful even in the lowest tier. Game Freak's Pokemon designers are cruel like that sometimes. Leavanny's weaknesses were just as crippling in the 6th generation, and it was to no one's surprise that it dropped like a brick through the tiering rung. However, there was now PU, a tier below NU, and Leavanny was able to carve out a notable niche there with a new toy it had received, Sticky Web, the unique speed-dropping entry hazard. It was a must-have Pokemon on hyper-offensive teams looking to abuse it. It was their designated suicide lead that started each battle off on the right foot by providing early offensive momentum via webs and crucial damage on one of the opponent's Pokemon, while preventing them from responding with their own hazards via Magic Coat. It reliably laid the webs down with its great speed, which meant it didn't have to use Mental Herb to stop Taunt, and could thus safely use Focus Sash to survive any hit. Plus, it could always bounce Taunt back with Magic Coat if it felt the need. It was also able to leave a mark on slow walls that didn't mind that their speed dropped by removing their leftovers with Knockoff, meaning it wasn't restricted to only being useful against offense and making it a solid choice against the whole metagame. Knockoff removing leftovers was also notable in helping Leavanny's already powerful Leaf Storm be more threatening to the Swanna and Pelipper that might want to defog its webs away. Leavanny wasn't able to threaten Vullaby with damage, but removing its Eviolite with Knockoff was even more damaging than leftovers removal, making Vullaby go from one tough egg to crack to an easily devoured omelet. Webs was also a key tool for hyper offense, helping strong but slow wall breakers such as Simipour and Stoutland bypass the issue of their speed. Leavanny was the best at ensuring it be on the field, and thus held a crucial spot in the PU metagame. Now on to Gen 7, nothing changed for Leavanny in Generation 7, while everything else got stronger, and as such it should come as no surprise that it didn't rear its head in any tier until PU came around, where it reprised its role as a Sticky Web user, though this time it wasn't the most viable user of the move. Shuckle and Smeargle were usually preferred. That said, Leavanny's advantages let it retain some sort of niche. It had the best speed of all three by quite some margin, and unlike the other two web setters, it could pose a genuine offensive threat against other common early game Pokemon, with its powerful Stab Leaf Blade doing a significant chunk to Golurk, Regirock, and Mudsdale. Its powerful and potentially swarm boosted X-Scissor also let it seriously sting Skuntank. This, in conjunction with Life Orb to annoy walls dependent on leftovers or Eviolite, ideally let it accomplish a little more than setting up Sticky Web and dying. However, Shuckle and Smeargle were generally superior. Smeargle's ability to shut something down with Spore was enormous, and its unmatched move pool meant it could potentially shut down any encounter. Shuckle's low speed worked in its favor since it had access to Encore, so it can maintain one hazard against Rapid Spin, Alolan Sandslash if paired with a Ghost type. And one hazard was specified there because it leads to possibly the biggest overall point in both Smeargle and Shuckle's favor. They could also set up Stealth Rock. Sticky Web teams were pressed enough for slots, given how their suicide web leads often had them starting games out 5-6, and they usually wanted to maximize the amount of web abusing damage they were dishing out in those last slots. They did not appreciate having to dedicate another slot on a team that already struggled to cover everything just to set up Stealth Rock. This tended to make them even matchup reliant and prone to more hazards being removed than usual, which was a bad look given Sticky Web's inherent riskiness as a playstyle. Overall, Leavanny was too niche for consistent usage, and it was used too little for even PU. Thus, it ended the generation as untiered, and it makes sense. If you told someone about the existence of untiered, Leavanny might very well be a Pokemon they might instinctively think whose viability would be reflected in such lack of usage, given its plethora of weaknesses and lack of strengths. And that's it. So how good was Leavanny actually? Well, it wasn't given a ton to work with, and it doesn't take a competitive veteran to see that it is one of the best examples of how not all Pokemon are created equal. Even in the lower tiers, it didn't really have a niche, and sure, you could squint until you found something it could technically do, but realistically, you wouldn't. And that's why players who wanted to win didn't. The exception being Oraz PU, where it had a firm role, but even that is quite telling. Not everything has to be an OU Giant, but when 2 of your 3 generations see you as completely unusable, and your one niche is the lowest tier in the 3rd, that's quite the indictment of your viability. In all likelihood, Leavanny will need some serious boost if it's ever to rise above PU. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I know this was a short episode, but trust me, we needed the time to prepare for what's to come. Let's just say we here at FSG have some video gifts for you all for this December, so there won't be any voting for all of December since we already plan to release some big videos. Also, side note, Glaceon lost to Leavanny in the Patreon voting by like 2 votes, so yeah. There's that. And as always, if you liked the video and you want to see more, be sure to subscribe to Fall Swipe Gaming for more weekly Pokemon content. And in the comments, I want to know, what do you think about competitive Leavanny? If it ever comes back, how would you improve it? Or do you just not care about it? Whatever it is, let me know in the comments. Also, thank you so much to our patrons for continued support of our videos and for voting for this Pokemon for the patron pick this month, as weird of a decision as it is. And follow my crew on these social media platforms. And that's all I got. See you next time, everyone.